Let me start by saying something most people don't want to admit. Dealing with someone who clearly doesn't like you can be exhausting. It's frustrating, it's draining, and sometimes it's downright painful. I know because I've been there. I've felt the sting of disrespect, the coldness of being ignored, and the subtle jabs that leave you questioning yourself. But let me tell you, those moments don't define you. They're not your story unless you let them be. Here's the thing, when someone despises you, it's not always about you. Often it's their own insecurities, jealousy, or unresolved issues projecting onto you. But here's the twist. How you respond is entirely within your control, and the way you handle those situations can change everything. When I first started learning how to deal with people like this, I made a lot of mistakes. I would overreact, try to confront them directly, or worse, let their negativity pull me down. Each time I felt weaker, smaller, like I was giving them exactly what they wanted, power over me. But then something clicked. I realized I didn't have to fight their games or prove anything to them. I could rise above it, silently and powerfully. What I'm about to share with you is a game changer. These are not the usual feel-good tips like just ignore it or take the high road. No, these are practical, silent actions that speak louder than any argument ever could. They're rooted in strength, confidence, and wisdom, the kind of wisdom that puts you back in control of how you're perceived and how you feel about yourself. Let's be honest, nobody likes to feel disrespected, but trying to win against someone who thrives on negativity, that's a losing battle. Instead, what if you could flip the dynamic? What if you could make them see your strength without saying a word? What if their attempts to belittle or undermine you only ended up showcasing your calm, unshakable confidence? That's power. And it's not about revenge, it's about reclaiming your energy and refusing to be controlled by anyone else's actions. Every time I've applied these principles, the results have been undeniable. The same people who used to take pleasure in testing me started second-guessing themselves. They stopped seeing me as someone they could manipulate or provoke. I didn't have to raise my voice or lower myself to their level. I just showed them, quietly but firmly, that I wasn't someone they could mess with. And you can do the same. You don't need loud words or dramatic gestures to make an impact. True strength is in the way you carry yourself, in the silence that speaks volumes, the calm that rattles their chaos, and the unshakable confidence that makes them realize they underestimated you. So, if you've ever felt powerless, if you've ever let someone's negativity shake you, know this: you have everything you need to turn the tables. It starts with these silent actions. Let's explore how you can reclaim your power and walk through this with grace, strength, and the kind of resolve that leaves them rethinking everything. Let me ask you something straightforward. Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, someone refuses to see your value? You try harder, give more, and maybe even compromise yourself a little, hoping they'll notice what you bring to the table, but instead, they keep taking you for granted, acting like your presence is optional, even disposable. It's a harsh reality, but one I know all too well. What I learned, though, changed everything. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make isn't with words or actions. It's with your absence. I'm not talking about running away or giving up. I'm talking about a deliberate, strategic decision to remove yourself from spaces where your worth isn't recognized. Because here's the truth: people only start to miss the light when it's no longer shining in their world. Your absence, when done right, can be louder and more impactful than any argument or confrontation ever could. When you step back, something profound happens. You give the other person a chance to sit with the void you leave behind. And trust me, voids are powerful. They force people to confront what life feels like without you, without your energy, without your contributions. It's not about playing games. It's about reclaiming your energy and reminding yourself and them of your irreplaceable value. When I first started practicing this, it wasn't easy. I was so used to over-explaining myself, trying to mend broken dynamics, and putting in all the work to fix relationships that felt one-sided. But stepping back taught me something life-changing. When you stop pouring yourself into people who don't appreciate it, they either learn to value you or fade into the background. Either way, you win. Creating a void isn't about ghosting someone or being passive-aggressive. It's about making a conscious choice to prioritize your peace over their lack of recognition. I once worked with someone who constantly undermined my efforts, no matter how hard I tried to collaborate. Instead of confronting them head-on, I decided to remove myself from the dynamic. I stopped chasing their approval, stopped seeking validation, and focused on my own growth. The result? Not only did I find more peace, but they also started to realize just how much they'd relied on me. That shift in energy changed the entire relationship. Absence has a way of amplifying your presence in people's minds. When you're no longer there, they start to notice the little things they took for granted, the way you always had their back, the way you brought calm to chaos, the way your presence made things better. Suddenly, the silence becomes deafening, and the void you create forces them to confront a truth they'd been avoiding. You mattered more than they let on. This isn't about playing the victim or trying to manipulate anyone. It's about standing in your power and knowing that your presence is a privilege, not something to be dismissed. And let me tell you, it takes courage. It's not easy to walk away, especially when you care deeply or have invested time and energy into someone or something. But the moment you do, you reclaim something priceless, your dignity. I've also found that creating a void doesn't just impact others. It transforms you. It gives you time to reflect, to refocus, and to remember what you bring to the table. It's a period of recalibration where you reconnect with your worth and rebuild your confidence. That clarity is invaluable because when you eventually re-enter the dynamic or move on entirely, you do so from a place of strength, not desperation. One of the most surprising things I've learned about absence is how it changes the way people see you. When you're always there, always available, people start to take it for granted. It's not necessarily malicious, it's human nature. But when you step back, they're forced to reevaluate. They start to ask themselves questions they never had to before. Why did they leave? What did I do? Was I wrong? That self-reflection is a powerful catalyst for change, both for them and for you. But let me be clear, this isn't a quick fix. Absence takes time to work its magic. It requires patience, discipline, and a willingness to sit with the discomfort of not being in control. Because let's face it, stepping back feels vulnerable. You're letting go of the urge to micromanage the situation, to fix things, or to ensure they see your value immediately. But trust me, the long-term impact is worth it. When you create that void, you also set a boundary. You're saying, without words, I will not pour into someone who doesn't pour back into me. And that boundary isn't just for them, it's for you. It's a reminder to yourself that you deserve mutual respect, appreciation, and effort. And let me tell you, once you start valuing your energy, others will too. There's something undeniably powerful about watching someone come to terms with the absence you've created. It's not about reveling in their discomfort, it's about standing firm in your worth. And here's the kicker, not everyone will rise to the occasion. Some people will let you go without a fight, and while that may sting, it's also a blessing in disguise. Because the people who truly value you will notice your absence, feel its weight, and take steps to make things right. In those moments, you'll see the real power of absence. It's not just about making a statement, it's about shifting the dynamic entirely. It's about reminding yourself and others that your presence is a gift, not a given. And once you've mastered that, you'll find that you no longer need to fight for respect. It's earned naturally, simply by knowing your worth and refusing to settle for less. So the next time you're feeling undervalued, don't waste your energy trying to prove your worth. Step back, create the void, and let them see for themselves what life looks like without you in it. It's a lesson they won't soon forget, and a transformation you'll never regret. When you choose absence, something powerful happens. It's not just about creating space for others to reflect on your value, but also about reclaiming your energy and peace. Yet, even in your absence, challenges will persist. People may still try to provoke you, test your boundaries, or pull you back into their negativity. This is where the next piece of wisdom becomes essential: mastering emotional detachment. It's not just about stepping away physically, but maintaining a calm, unshakable center, no matter what comes your way. Let me be honest with you, this is one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn. There's an almost automatic urge to react when someone challenges us, disrespects us, or intentionally tries to get under our skin. Our instincts scream at us to fight back, defend ourselves, or make them feel the weight of their actions. But reacting in those moments doesn't fix the problem, it feeds it. I've been there, and every time I let my emotions take the lead, it felt like I was giving away my power piece by piece. Learning to stay calm, composed, and detached changed everything for me. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're choosing to protect your peace. When someone tries to provoke you, it's usually because they're looking for a reaction. They want to see you flinch, to pull you into their chaos, or to make themselves feel superior by destabilizing you. When you refuse to engage, you're sending a powerful message. You're in control of your emotions, and they have no power over you. I remember a situation where someone deliberately tried to embarrass me in a group setting. The old me would have jumped to defend myself, to set the record straight, to make them feel the sting of their own words. But instead, I paused. I took a breath, stayed calm, and simply responded with neutral words that didn't give them the reaction they wanted. What happened next was remarkable. They fumbled. They expected a fight, and when it didn't come, they looked foolish instead. That's the power of detachment. When you remain unshaken, their attempts to provoke you crumble under the weight of your silence and calm. One of the keys to mastering emotional detachment is recognizing what's within your control and what isn't. People's opinions, actions, and words. Not within your control. Your reaction to them. Entirely yours. When you start viewing provocations as tests of your own discipline, they lose their sting. You begin to see every insult, every jab, and every negative interaction as an opportunity to strengthen your inner calm. Another important aspect is learning how to pause. When emotions rise, the immediate impulse is to react. But pausing, just for a few seconds, creates a buffer between the trigger and your response. In that space, you can choose clarity over chaos. You can decide not to let someone else's behavior dictate your mood or your actions. I've practiced this countless times, and each time I've paused, I've walked away feeling stronger, more grounded, and completely unbothered. It's also about not taking things personally. This one took me years to internalize, but it's life-changing. Most of the time, when people lash out or try to provoke you, it's not about you, it's about them. Their insecurities, their unhappiness, their need for control. When you stop personalizing their behavior, you free yourself from the weight of their negativity. It's not about you, and it never was. I've learned to remind myself of this in every difficult interaction, and it's like a shield against their attempts to pull me into their storm. Building emotional detachment also means finding ways to ground yourself, even in the middle of chaos. For me, it's often as simple as focusing on my breath. Taking slow, deliberate breaths when someone is testing my patience has been my secret weapon. It centers me, reminds me of my power, and keeps me from reacting impulsively. I've found that the calmer I remain, the more flustered they become. They're expecting a reaction, and when they don't get it, their entire approach starts to unravel. Over time, I've also come to see the value in responding with empathy instead of anger. Detachment doesn't mean cold indifference. It means approaching the situation with a level head. Sometimes when someone is lashing out, what they really need is understanding, not validation of their behavior, but acknowledgement of their pain. I've seen this shift dynamics in ways I couldn't have predicted. By staying calm and detached, I've been able to diffuse situations that could have spiraled into full-blown conflicts. One of the most profound lessons in detachment is this: your peace is not up for negotiation. There will always be people who try to shake you, who test your limits, who bring negativity into your space. But their actions don't have to define your experience. You have the power to choose how much access they have to your emotions and your energy. When you master detachment, you're setting a boundary that says, you can act however you choose, but it won't disrupt my inner world. Letting go of the need to prove yourself is another cornerstone of emotional detachment. So many times, we react because we feel the need to explain ourselves, to correct their misjudgments, or to defend our reputation. But the truth is, you don't owe anyone an explanation. Your worth isn't determined by their perception of you, and you don't need their approval to validate who you are. I found that when I let go of that need, I feel freer, lighter, and far more in control of my life. Detachment allows you to focus on what truly matters. Instead of wasting energy on petty provocations or toxic dynamics, you can redirect that energy toward your goals, your passions, and the people who uplift you. It's a shift in focus that brings clarity and purpose. When you stop giving power to those who seek to drain you, you'll find that you have so much more to give to yourself and to the things that bring you joy. Mastering emotional detachment is a process. It takes practice, patience, and a deep commitment to protecting your peace. But once you've cultivated this skill, you'll find that the provocations that used to shake you lose their power entirely. You'll walk through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that no one can control your emotions except you. And that kind of strength, it's untouchable. As you strengthen your emotional detachment, you begin to notice something remarkable. People lose their grip on you. Their words, their actions, their attempts to rattle you start to feel less significant, almost as if they're bouncing off an invisible shield. But there's another layer to this mastery, one that takes your inner strength to a whole new level, cultivating an unshakable calm. This isn't just about avoiding emotional reactions. It's about embodying a serenity so profound that it becomes a source of strength and inspiration, even in the face of chaos. When you can meet provocation with stillness, you're sending a message that's louder than any argument or rebuttal could ever be. I am in control, and you cannot disturb my peace. This isn't a skill you're born with. It's one you develop through practice, reflection, and a deep commitment to yourself. Let me share how I've embraced this approach in my life and why it's one of the most powerful tools I've ever learned. There was a time when provocation felt like an attack on my identity. If someone insulted me, I'd feel the need to defend myself, to correct them, to prove I was better than their words. But what I didn't realize was that every time I reacted, I was handing them my power. Their words dictated my emotions, and in those moments, I wasn't free. I was controlled by their behavior. The turning point came when I started practicing stillness, not just as a response, but as a way of living. Responding with calm begins with understanding the nature of provocation. People provoke for many reasons. Maybe they're projecting their own insecurities, testing your boundaries, or simply seeking attention. Whatever their reason, it's not about you, it's about them. This realization alone was a game changer for me. When I stopped personalizing their actions, I could see them for what they were: attempts to destabilize me, to draw me into their chaos. That clarity gave me the strength to choose calm over conflict. Staying calm doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending not to care. It means acknowledging your feelings without letting them control you. I've found that the best way to do this is to focus on your breath. In the moment of provocation, taking slow, deep breaths helps anchor you in the present. It's a simple yet powerful way to remind yourself that you are in control. Every breath is a statement. I will not be moved by this. Another key to cultivating an unshakable calm is learning to pause before you respond. Provocation often demands an immediate reaction, but reacting on impulse almost always leads to regret. When you pause, even for a few seconds, you create space between the trigger and your response. In that space, you can choose how to act, rather than letting the moment choose for you. I've practiced this in countless situations, and it's remarkable how much power lies in those few seconds of stillness. Calmness is also deeply rooted in self-assurance. When you know your worth, you don't feel the need to defend it to others. I used to think that staying silent in the face of provocation made me weak, but I've come to see it as a sign of strength. It takes far more courage to remain composed than to lash out. Your calmness becomes a mirror, reflecting their instability back at them. And in that reflection, they're forced to confront their own behavior. There's also an element of empathy in responding with calm. Provocation often comes from a place of pain or insecurity. While this doesn't excuse the behavior, it can help you understand it. When I started viewing provocations through this lens, I felt less anger and more compassion. This shift allowed me to respond with kindness instead of hostility, which often disarmed the situation entirely. People don't expect kindness in the face of conflict. It's a curveball that leaves them reevaluating their approach. Choosing not to engage in conflict doesn't mean you're passive. In fact, it's one of the most active choices you can make. It requires strength, discipline, and a deep commitment to your peace. I've learned that walking away from a provocation isn't about avoiding the problem. It's about refusing to let someone else dictate your experience. It's about prioritizing your well-being over the temporary satisfaction of winning an argument. Calmness also extends to your body language. The way you carry yourself speaks volumes. When provoked, standing tall, maintaining eye contact, and keeping your voice steady sends a message of confidence and composure. It's a silent declaration that says, "I am unshaken." People respond to that energy, often more than to your words. I've seen this play out in my own interactions. Staying physically calm has diffused conflicts before they even began. One of the most transformative aspects of cultivating calm is the impact it has on your inner world. The more you practice responding to provocations with serenity, the more peaceful you become overall. It's not just about how you handle conflict, it's about how you move through life. Calmness becomes a habit, a way of being that permeates every interaction and decision. Over time, you'll find that the things that used to bother you no longer hold the same weight. Your perspective shifts, and you become anchored in your own strength. This unshakable calm doesn't just benefit you, it influences those around you. When you remain composed in the face of chaos, you set an example. People start to see you as a source of stability, someone they can trust in difficult moments. I've had people tell me that my calmness inspired them to approach their own challenges differently. That's the ripple effect of choosing serenity over reaction. Practicing calm doesn't mean you'll never feel provoked again. There will always be situations that test you, and there will be times when staying composed feels like the hardest thing in the world. But each time you choose calm, you're building resilience. You're training yourself to respond with grace, even in the most challenging circumstances. And that resilience is what makes your calm truly unshakable. As you continue to embrace this approach, you'll notice something extraordinary. The provocations that once felt overwhelming will start to feel insignificant. You'll see them for what they are, temporary moments that don't deserve your energy. And in that realization, you'll find freedom. Freedom from the need to react, freedom from the chaos of others, and freedom to live life on your own terms. When you cultivate an unshakable calm, you're not just protecting your peace, you're embodying your power. You're showing the world and yourself that no matter what comes your way, you can handle it with strength, grace, and unwavering serenity. And that kind of power is untouchable. As I've learned, calmness in the face of conflict isn't just about protecting your inner peace. It's about showing others that their efforts to disrupt you are meaningless. But there's another layer to this mastery, one that can be even more powerful when used intentionally: silence. Not the kind of silence that comes from avoidance or fear, but a deliberate, strategic quiet that speaks volumes without saying a single word. Silence, when wielded wisely, is not just the absence of sound. It's a force that can disarm, unsettle, and even command respect. I've often found that silence can say far more than words ever could. There's a strength in restraint, a power in choosing not to fill the air with explanations, defenses, or reactions. Silence leaves room for others to reveal themselves, sometimes exposing their true intentions, sometimes forcing them to confront the weight of their own actions. It's not about shutting down or giving up. It's about creating space for clarity, both for yourself and for those around you. I once had a colleague who thrived on manipulation. They would twist words, provoke reactions, and try to control conversations to their advantage. At first, I tried to counter them with logic and explanation, thinking I could outsmart their tactics with well-crafted responses. But the more I spoke, the more they twisted my words. It wasn't until I chose silence that the dynamic began to shift. Instead of engaging, I listened. Instead of reacting, I observed. And instead of explaining, I let my silence do the talking. The more I refused to feed into their manipulation, the more their tactics unraveled. They were left grasping at straws, their control slipping away. Silence, when used strategically, is like holding up a mirror. It forces the other person to see their own behavior without the distraction of your reactions. This can be incredibly unsettling for someone who thrives on conflict or manipulation. They expect resistance, argument, or at least acknowledgement. When all they're met with is quiet resolve, it throws them off balance. They begin to question themselves, their approach, and even their own motives. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned about silence is that it's not about passivity, it's about presence. When you're silent, you're still actively engaged, but in a way that demonstrates self-control and authority. It's not the silence of retreat, but the silence of observation. You're watching, assessing, and allowing the other person to reveal more than they intended. This kind of silence is incredibly powerful in negotiations, conflicts, and even personal relationships. It shows that you don't need to fill the space to assert your presence. You already own it. Strategic silence also has a way of drawing people in. There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't feel the need to explain themselves or dominate the conversation. It creates curiosity, even intrigue. People start to wonder what you're thinking, what you're holding back, and why you're so composed. This can be a game changer in situations where you need to assert authority or establish boundaries without confrontation. Another important aspect of silence is its ability to diffuse tension. Words often escalate conflict, especially when emotions are running high. Silence, on the other hand, acts as a pause button. It gives both you and the other person a chance to breathe, to process, and to reset. I've seen heated arguments come to an abrupt halt simply because one person chose to stop talking. That pause can be the difference between resolution and escalation. Silence also communicates confidence. When you're silent, you're essentially saying, "I don't need to defend myself. My actions and presence speak for themselves." This kind of confidence is unshakable because it doesn't rely on external validation. It's rooted in a deep understanding of your own worth. I've found that the more confident I've become in my silence, the less I feel the need to prove myself to others. And the less I feel the need to prove, the more respect I seem to command. But silence isn't just about how it affects others, it's also about what it does for you. It gives you time to think, to process, and to choose your next move wisely. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to say things you don't mean or make decisions you later regret. Silence creates a buffer, a space where you can regain your composure and ensure that your actions align with your values. This kind of intentionality is a hallmark of strength. I've also noticed that silence can be a form of self-care. When you refuse to engage in unnecessary conflicts or drama, you're protecting your energy. You're choosing to invest your time and attention in things that truly matter, rather than wasting them on people or situations that don't deserve them. This isn't selfish, it's essential. Your energy is finite, and silence is one of the most effective ways to conserve it. There's a beauty in the simplicity of silence. It doesn't require elaborate strategies or clever arguments. It's accessible to everyone, regardless of personality or circumstance, and yet its impact can be profound. I've seen relationships transform, conflicts dissolve, and power dynamics shift, all because one person chose to be silent when it mattered most. Silence also teaches patience. It's a practice in restraint, in waiting for the right moment to speak, or not speak at all. This patience can be incredibly empowering because it puts you in control of the timing and the narrative. When you're silent, you're not reacting to someone else's agenda, you're setting your own. This kind of deliberate pacing can turn the tide of any interaction in your favor. Silence is a reminder of your inner strength. It takes courage to hold back, especially when provoked. It takes discipline to resist the urge to fill the void. But every time you choose silence, you're reinforcing your own resilience. You're proving to yourself that you don't need to rely on words to make an impact. You already have everything you need within you. As I've learned, the art of silence is not about retreat. It's about power. It's about knowing when to speak and when to let your quiet presence do the talking. It's about understanding that sometimes the loudest statement you can make is the one you don't say. And it's about trusting yourself enough to know that your silence is enough. That kind of confidence can't be shaken, and its impact is undeniable. Silence, as we've just explored, is a profound way to command respect without confrontation. But there's another layer to this power, one that builds on the foundation of quiet confidence, letting your actions speak louder than any words ever could. Words are easy. They come and go, often forgotten as quickly as they're spoken. Actions, though, they leave an impression that lingers. They're undeniable, tangible proof of your strength, your value, and your boundaries. And when used purposefully, they can reshape how people see you and how they treat you. Let me start by saying this. I used to rely heavily on words to prove myself. I would explain my intentions, defend my decisions, and try to convince people of my value. But the more I talked, the less effective I felt. It was as if my words diluted my message. Then I realized something powerful. What I did mattered far more than what I said. It wasn't my explanations that changed people's perceptions. It was my actions. That's when everything shifted. The strength of action lies in its authenticity. When you act, you're not just saying what you stand for, you're showing it. And that kind of demonstration is impossible to ignore. I've learned that when I establish boundaries through consistent actions, rather than repeated explanations, those boundaries are respected. For example, there was a time when someone in my life continuously ignored my requests for respect. No amount of talking seemed to get through to them. So I stopped talking and started acting. I distanced myself, became less available, and prioritized my own well-being. My actions said what my words couldn't. I won't tolerate disrespect. And suddenly, their behavior changed. They started treating me with the respect I had been asking for all along. Actions are powerful because they create clarity. They remove ambiguity, leaving no room for misunderstanding. When you act, people see exactly what you mean, and that understanding forces them to reevaluate their approach. It's not about being dramatic or making a scene. It's about consistency. Consistent actions send a message that cannot be denied. When you consistently show up for yourself, prioritize your boundaries, and follow through on your values, people notice. They may not admit it, but they do. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned is that actions don't need to be grand to be impactful. Small, deliberate choices can have a profound effect. Take, for instance, how you respond to someone who tries to undermine you. Instead of arguing or defending yourself, you can simply let your work or results speak for themselves. If someone doubts your abilities, there's no need to convince them otherwise. Instead, focus on excelling at what you do. Deliver results so undeniable that they have no choice but to acknowledge your capability. I've done this time and again, and it's far more effective than any explanation could ever be. Another important aspect of projecting inner strength through action is accountability. When you take responsibility for your actions and outcomes, you're showing others that you're reliable and self-assured. People respect those who own their decisions, even when things don't go as planned. I've found that when I approach challenges with a mindset of accountability, fixing mistakes rather than making excuses, it not only strengthens my own confidence, but also earns the respect of those around me. It shows that I'm grounded, capable, and not afraid to stand by my choices. Actions also communicate boundaries in a way that words often can't. When someone tests your limits, explaining your boundaries over and over again can feel exhausting, and it rarely works. But when you enforce those boundaries through your behavior, the message is clear. For example, if someone repeatedly interrupts your time or violates your space, stepping back or limiting access to yourself speaks louder than any verbal explanation. You're showing, through action, that their behavior has consequences. And when those consequences are consistent, they learn to respect the boundaries you've set. One of the most empowering things about letting your actions do the talking is that it frees you from the need to seek approval or validation. When you're focused on action, you're not trying to convince anyone of your worth. You're simply living it. That shift is liberating. It allows you to prioritize your own values and goals rather than getting caught up in other people's perceptions. I've noticed that when I focus on living in alignment with my own values, rather than trying to prove myself to others, I feel more at peace. And ironically, that's when others seem to notice and respect me the most. Actions also have the power to inspire. When you lead by example, you're showing others what's possible. I've seen this in my own life. whether it's in personal relationships or professional settings. When I stay consistent in my actions, choosing integrity over shortcuts, kindness over retaliation, or calm over chaos, it encourages others to rise to that level as well. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. People are drawn to those who walk their talk, who live out their values without compromise. Purposeful actions also build trust, both with yourself and with others. Every time you follow through on something you've committed to, you're reinforcing your own reliability. This trust is the foundation of confidence. The more you trust yourself to act in alignment with your values, the less you feel the need to prove yourself to others. And when others see that consistency, it builds their trust in you as well. They know they can rely on you, not because of what you say, but because of what you do. One of the most profound realizations I've had about the power of action is that it doesn't just change how others see you. It changes how you see yourself. When you take intentional, value-driven actions, you're reinforcing your own sense of worth. You're reminding yourself that you're capable, strong, and deserving of respect. That inner transformation is far more powerful than any external validation could ever be. Living a life where your actions speak louder than your words requires discipline and self-awareness. It means being intentional about what you do and ensuring that your actions align with your principles. It's not about perfection, it's about authenticity. People respect authenticity because it's rare, and when your actions consistently reflect your true self, you become a force to be reckoned with. When you commit to communicating through action, you're stepping into a space of quiet authority. You're showing that you don't need to shout, argue, or explain yourself to be heard. Your actions say it all, and that kind of strength, it's undeniable, it's transformative, and it's yours to claim. As we wrap this up, let me leave you with this. True power doesn't come from loud words, dramatic confrontations, or trying to control how others see you. It comes from mastering yourself, your emotions, your actions, your energy. Each of these silent actions we've explored is a tool to reclaim your strength, set boundaries, and show those who doubted or disrespected you exactly who you are, without a single ounce of unnecessary effort. When you step back with strategic absence, detach emotionally, cultivate an unshakable calm, and project your value through purposeful actions, you're not just earning respect, you're commanding it. And yes, even those who once despised or underestimated you will begin to rethink their stance. Not because you forced them to, but because you showed them what true strength looks like. The beauty of these lessons is that they're not just about dealing with others, they're about elevating yourself. They're about stepping into your power in a way that feels calm, confident, and utterly unshakable. And trust me, when you live this way, you're unstoppable. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these silent actions resonated with you the most? Have you used any of these strategies before? Share your thoughts, stories, or even challenges in the comments. I'll be reading them, and I'd love to connect with you there. If you found value in this, don't let it stop here. Hit that subscribe button and join me for more insights, lessons, and strategies to live a life rooted in strength, wisdom, and purpose. Let's grow together. See you next time, and until then, walk with confidence, stay grounded, and let your actions speak louder than anything else ever could.